Donald Trump just torched the most powerful religious voting coalition in American political history, and he did it by posting himself as Jesus Christ and picking a fight with the Pope. This could be huge, and my fellow Republicans are getting really nervous. So let's talk about how we got here, what Trump did, and what could happen next for Trump and the Republican Party. 1964, Lyndon Johnson signed the Civil Rights Act and reportedly said, "We just lost the South for a generation." And he was right. Nixon sees the fracture and drives a truck straight through it. He wins 79% of the Southern white vote in 1972. But Nixon gives them resentment. Reagan gave them God. Jerry Falwell built the moral majority, registers millions of evangelicals who had never voted, and marches them straight to Reagan. Republicans aren't just the party of white Southerners anymore. They're the party of Christian values. Newt Gingrich runs the Contract with America in 1994. Republicans flip the House for the first time in 40 years, pick up 19 Southern seats. Karl Rove perfected the machine. Evangelical turns out through the roof. Bush wins 78% of white evangelicals in 2004. But here's where every previous Republican understood the assignment, and Trump blew it completely. Reagan, Bush, Gingrich, they all used the religious coalition as a vehicle. They served the movement. They didn't become it. You court them, you deliver for them. You are never the object of their devotion. And for a long time it worked because Trump kept delivering. Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, Barrett. So they looked past the Stormy Daniels payment. They looked past the Access Hollywood video. But something was shifting underneath because Trump wasn't just using the religious coalition anymore. He was replacing it with himself. His rally started running a video called God Gave Us Trump.
God said, I need somebody willing to get up before dawn, fix this country, work all day, fight the Marxists, eat supper, then go to the Oval Office and stay past midnight at a meeting of the heads of state. So God made Trump.
He calls himself the chosen one on camera about a trade dispute with China. His own spiritual advisor compared him to Jesus Christ at a White House event. This is a man who has become the object of worship, and for most of his coalition that was fine, until he attacked the Pope. He called Pope Leo, the first American Pope in the history of the Catholic Church, weak, liberal, and bad at his job. Told him to stop catering to the radical left. Claimed that without Trump, Leo wouldn't even be in the Vatican. Then he posted himself as Christ healing the sick. Trump won Catholics by 20 points in 2024, the best Catholic performance by a Republican in decades. A Fox News poll now has Trump at -4 with Catholic voters. The Pope sits at a +34 favorability rating while Trump's at -12. That's a 46-point gap. Every leader from Reagan forward understood one thing. You are the servant of the movement, not the Messiah. Trump has spent a decade slowly reversing that, and the coalition let him because the returns were real. But there is a point where the transaction breaks, where you can forgive a sinner, but you cannot worship a false idol and still call yourself a Christian. Now, whether last week was that moment, whether this is the beginning of a realignment, or whether the coalition holds one more time, that is the question. But one thing is for certain, we'll be watching.
Matt, that was great, really informative. And to me, the take home here is that this bargain between the evangelical / Catholic overall Christian vote and Donald Trump, this bargain was always a devil's bargain. They made a pact with the most immoral and godless person to ever occupy the Oval Office. Divorced 3 times, a convicted felon, serial cheater, thousands, literally 4,000 lawsuits, most of them with cheated contractors, small businesses, and cruelty as his governing style. And they did it for a mess of pottage. They did it essentially because he promised them Supreme Court justices. In a way, they got their end of the bargain. They got the Dobbs decision. But what it meant was dispensing with the rest of Christian theology, dispensing with care for the poor, humility, mercy, truthfulness, fidelity, feeding the hungry. Whatsoever you do unto these, the least of my brethren, you do unto me. Don't forget that in 2016, Trump won 81% of white evangelical Protestants. In 2020, that was 76%. 2024, about 80%. Trump, as you said, won Catholics by about 20 points in 2024. Is this the moment that's going to break that coalition? And if it does, I think the question that Christians need to ask themselves is, why is this the straw that broke the camel's back? After Trump last year committed the most egregious affront to the teachings of Jesus that I can think of by outright sentencing to death the poorest, most miserable people on earth with the destruction of USAID. Why is this the thing that pushed you over the edge?
I don't think people fully understand how powerful the Christian right is to electoral politics and Republican victories for so long. If I'm doing a race in the South, those are my first calls. Even if I'm doing a race in mid-Atlantic, Northeast, somewhere else, they are part of this coalition that we build. What Trump is essentially doing, he has himself confused with the MAGA cult, and he feels like he can get away with this stuff.
Let me ask you a question then. In your experience as a campaign manager, a state party executive director, as a campaign strategist, is this a durable crack in this Republican Christian coalition?
This is that first crack in this coalition. I don't know if we're going to see it all in the midterm because it depends on who the Democrats nominate. If you push through the conservative values, they're going to look past a lot of things. That's what they did with Trump. They see the Supreme Court. They saw the abortion battle as the number one battle, and Trump made a deal with them. But that also doesn't mean they won't leave him in a heartbeat. And when you talk to the Christian right, it is God, country, family. When Trump puts himself in that position, he hurts not only himself, but every single Republican that are trying to get those votes. What you're going to see on a much more local level is you're going to see them run more to the Christian right in order to try to get those people, try to get those votes back and try to separate themselves from Trump. But there's still going to be an issue here. Right now, you have Trump fighting on so many different places. He's fighting the Pope. He's fighting the Fed. He's fighting the courts. They are losing, and it shows.
I think that's a perfect closing note. And I would hope that Christians who have been voting for Republicans for years would look into their own hearts and look into the teachings of the book that they actually are supposed to be reading, and especially Matthew 19, verse 24, where it reads, "It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God."